how I learned the story was many years ago when I was younger, 2 or 3 years ago, that area. You okay? As I was saying, 2 or 3 years ago when I was much younger, and I was living in Virginia. I belonged to this organization called the Frontiersman Camping Fraternity, and we did a lot with Native American living, along with frontiersmen living and mountain men, and it was kind of went to rendezvous, and so you learned a lot of really cool things. And I learned this story, and I taught it for years and years. It's one of my favorite stories, and it's a story about the red and yellow striped snake. And here's how it goes. There is this young Indian boy, and as tradition has it, he has to go through a test of manhood in order to be, cross over from being a boy to a man. And there's a point in time in their life where they have to go through a specific test. Well, this one particular boy, it was his time, and he was not just your average everyday young Indian boy. Actually, he was the chief's son, and the chief's only son, and he was next in line to be the chief of this great tribe. And when it come time for his test, all he had to do really was just go across the plain, and when he got to the other end, there was this mountain, and from his village, he could barely see the top, and all he had to do was climb to the top of the mountain and then return home. That's all he had to do, and he passed. Well, the day of the test, when it began, his dad was just giving him some last-minute advice, and what he told him, he says, now son, whatever you do, just make sure you stay away from the red and yellow striped snake, because it means death. Anything to do with that snake, it certainly means death. That's the only advice I want to give you. And this little Indian, the young Indian boy was like, yeah, I know, Dad, you told me 100 times. You told me all the time I was growing up. You told me getting ready for this test, and I know I'll stay away from the red and yellow striped snake. So he says, well, that's all I want to give you, son, and I'll see you when you get back. And he takes off running because he thinks he could run the whole distance, but then he realizes it's quite a journey, and he has to slow down, pace himself, because it takes a couple of days just to get to the mountain. And he's got to do all his, life skills and survival skills, and he gets to the bottom of the mountain, and at first he starts climbing. It's kind of easy, kind of gradual, because that's how life is sometimes, but then as he gets up the mountain farther, it gets a little more difficult, and some sharp rocks and a couple of cliffs, and he kind of falls a couple times, scrapes his knees, but he keeps going, keeps climbing, and all of a sudden he steps into snow, and he realizes he's at the top of the mountain. And he turns around and he sees the whole world in front of him, the whole horizon. He looks back and barely sees smoke coming up from his village way far, far away. It's like the whole world at his feet, and he realizes he's made it. All he's got left now is to just turn around and head back, and he's passed into his manhood. And just as he gets ready to turn around and leave, coiled up in the snow is the red and yellow striped snake. And the snake calls out and says, oh, Indian boy, I'm so cold, save me, save me. And the Indian boy said, no, I can't. I've been, warned, and have anything to do with you is certain death. And he says, no, you don't understand. He says, I already know your legend. I've been part of your history forever. If I die, part of your history dies, and I already know who you are. I know you're the son of the great Indian chief. I mean, I passed through your village many times at night, went right by your tent and never bothered you because I knew how important you were. But I just need to get down. I wandered too far up. I just need to get to the bottom of the mountain. And he talks the Indian boy into saving him. So the Indian boy reaches down, picks him up, puts him in his little hunting pouch, heads back down to the bottom of the mountain, gets all the way to the bottom of the mountain, reaches in, pulls out the snake, sets him in the grass, the sun hits him, it kind of stretches out a little, it gets, kind of antiquated where he's at, and he says, oh, thank you, Indian boy, you've saved my life. He says, now, you go home, I'm going to go the other way. No one has to ever know that we ever met up here. Thanks for saving me, it's over, and you just go on and enjoy your manhood. And just as the Indian boy turned around, the snake turned around and bit him in the back of the leg. And the Indian boy turned around, and his eyes were full of tears, and he started to cry because he knew that he couldn't make it back because he was all alone, and the venom was already in his leg. And he looked at the snake, and he said, but you promised, and we made a deal. And the snake looked back at him and said, yeah, but you knew what I was before you ever picked me up. And the only reason I like to tell that to young people is because even like in an environment like this, your parents aren't around, grandparents aren't around, and there's things your parents have told you about ahead of time, and you just got to remember there's some things in life that bite, and you just got to sometimes remember when no one's around, giving you warning.